Hello everyone, this is Bhumita Bhattacharya from Swami Vivekananda Group of Institutes. Today I am going to talk about the vendor management, which is a very important part of the purchasing management system. Our first question could be like, who are the vendors? Who do we consider as our vendors? Going by the definition, a vendor could be a person or another company, a legal identity who sells goods or services to another individual or a legal identity or a company, a firm or an organization. Now, these vendors could be of small scale as well as large scale. We can find several small scale vendors in and around our neighboring areas. For example, the street hawkers, the vegetable dealers, the fish and or the fruit sellers that we can see in our neighboring markets are examples of small vendors. Vis-a-vis, there are large scale vendors as well. We also buy products and goods from big retail houses like Walmart, Spencer, Big Bazaar, etc. Now, where from these big retail houses they get their merchandises? They buy their products from some other small scale vendors, maybe an individual or another small scale firm or an organization, and collectively they make their own merchandises. The vendor management system needs to take care of several functions. For example, before selecting the vendor, a firm or an organization goes through some SOPs or standard operating procedures. What are those SOPs? For example, to check the vendor profiles and to make a risk assessment would be one of its standard procedures or protocols. Another tool could be auditing the existing vendors list and seeking for clarification, making an assessment of their past and previous performances. Also, non-conformance or non-compliance of the deliverables, to take some corrective actions on the basis of this non-compliance and to prevent any further derogatory or wasteful expenditure could be another tool to select before selecting the right kind of vendor. Product sampling and assessing the test results is another very effective tool to select the right vendor. Performance monitoring and reporting helps the top-notch management to take the right decision to select the right kind of vendors in order to avoid wasteful expenditure and also to save time and effort and to go for a long-term relationship. Thus, to go for details, we can consider that vendor management includes selection of vendors, the evaluation of the vendors, and the rating of vendors in an appropriate manner. The vendor selection process may include shortlisting the potential vendors, bringing in the vendors for demos with the various stakeholders, narrowing down the number of candidates, and then finally selecting the vendor who you find most appropriate for your organization. An in-depth study about the stages while selecting the vendor gives us the following points. Number one, identifying the key sourcing requirements. Number two, recognize the need for vendor selection. Number three, determining the sourcing strategy. Number four, identify the potential supply source. Number five, create the vendor pool. And number six, finally selecting the supplier by entering into a contract, maybe short-term or long-term. The vendor evaluation process depends on certain parameters. These such parameters include the reliability factor, reliability as in depending on the past performances and the current performances of the existing vendors, or maybe the word of mouth from similar other firms of the same industry. The technical capabilities of the vendors with regard to manpower, machine and money. The convenience factor with regards to convenience of payment, convenience of supply of goods. With the next point is that of the availability factor. Availability as in terms of the availability of the goods as and when required. For example, if there is an exigency or there is an urgency of getting an order, your vendor should be able to support that. The next point is that of the sales assistance and the after sales service. These two factors go a long way in sustaining an enduring relationship with the procurer or the hiring company and that of the vendors, giving enough technical and otherwise supports which is required as the case may be. Coming to the aspect of vendor rating, broadly, two types of supplier rating can be distinguished. One is that of the objective vendor rating, which is based on lead time, cost, and number of services calls, etc. Let me tell you, lead time here means the difference between the, or rather the time gap between placing an order and receiving an order. So precisely, what is the delivery time for that vendor? Okay. The cost includes the pricing factors, giving the goods or providing the goods at an economic rate, and of course, a good quality needs to be ensured as well, and number of service calls, that is also a part of the after sales service, the follow-up actions. Another type of vendor rating is known as the subjective vendor rating, which is based on opinions, experiences, and perceptions about the suppliers. Needless to say, the latter one, as the name or the term suggests, that it is more subjective or more individualistic in nature, whereas the former one is much more scientific, more objective in nature, leading or helping the procuring company to zero on the right kind of vendor appropriate for their organization. Thank you for watching my video and stay tuned for the next video on operations management